You wanted to make it better. That's the whole thing. That's why this stings. You didn't neglect your bike. You didn't skip an oil change or ride it hard and put it away wet. You did the opposite. You spent money. You spent a weekend in the garage. You installed the mod everybody in the comments swore by. The one that sounds incredible. The one that makes the bike look and feel like yours. You did everything right, and you were quietly destroying it. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Nobody in that comment section tells you some of the most popular upgrades on Earth, the ones half the bikes at every meet are running, are slowly wrecking the machine underneath you. Not in a way you'll feel on day one. In a way that shows up as a dead top end, a scored cylinder, a handling problem you can't diagnose, or a repair bill that costs more than every mod combined. The upgrade was the downgrade. You just paid to find out slowly. Today I'm going to show you the 3 popular upgrades that are secretly destroying motorcycles right now. Why each one does the damage, the exact warning sign your bike is already giving you, and at the end, how to actually modify a motorcycle without blowing it up. Number 1 is on a huge number of bikes at every single bike night, and most of the owners have no idea what it's doing. And if one of these is on your bike right now, you're going to want to hear the fix before your next ride. But first, you have to understand one thing, because every one of these scams runs on the same lie. A motorcycle does not leave the factory as a pile of separate parts. It leaves as a balanced system. The engineers who built it spent millions matching the intake to the exhaust, to the fuel map, to the suspension, to the geometry, all tuned to work together as one machine. And here's the part that matters. Modern bikes are tuned from the factory right on the raw edge, deliberately run lean, deliberately compromised to pass strict emissions and noise rules. That balance is fragile on purpose. So when you bolt on a single upgrade, one louder part, one shinier part, you're not adding to the system, you're breaking it. You changed one variable in an equation that was balanced, and now the whole thing is wrong. The aftermarket industry sells you a part. It does not sell you the system. And that gap between the part you bought and the tune you didn't is where your engine goes to die. Let's count down. Number 3, the aftermarket exhaust, installed with no tune. This is the gateway mod. It's the first thing almost everyone does. Rip off the heavy, quiet stock pipe, bolt on a loud slip-on or a full system, and suddenly the bike sounds like a real motorcycle. It's cheaper than you'd think. It's a weekend job, and the sound is genuinely addictive. I get it. I'm not here to tell you loud pipes are dumb. I'm here to tell you what happens next if you stop there. Remember, your bike left the factory tuned lean, right on the edge. A freer flowing exhaust lets more air rush out, which means the engine now wants more fuel to match. But you didn't give it more fuel. You just changed the pipe. So the mixture, which was already lean by design, gets pushed straight over the cliff into way too lean. And a lean engine is a hot engine. Lean means more heat in the combustion chamber, and heat is what kills motors. It burns valves, it cooks pistons, and in the ugly cases, it literally melts a hole clean through the top of a piston. People have holed a piston at nothing more than easy cruising speed because the mid-range was running too lean and they never knew. And here's the tell. The sign your bike is already screaming at you. The popping and crackling on deceleration. Riders love that sound. They think it's character. It's not character. It's unburnt fuel and a lean condition announcing itself out the back of your bike. That cool pop is the engine telling you it's not getting fed right. The fix isn't complicated and I'll cover it at the end. But the rule is simple. An exhaust is not a bolt-on. It's half of a job. The other half is the tune. Number 2, pod filters and ripping out the airbox. This is the next step down the same dark road, usually chasing that intake howl or a few more horsepower. And it does 2 kinds of damage at once, which is why it's worse. First, it makes the lean problem even worse. If the exhaust open the exit, pod filters blow open the entrance. Now the engine is gulping even more air, and unless you've tuned for it, you've just leaned out an already lean bike a second time. Double the airflow change, double the heat, double the risk to your pistons. But the second kind of damage is the one nobody talks about, and it's brutal. That ugly plastic airbox you just threw in the trash, it wasn't there to annoy you. It was doing real jobs. It smooths and straightens the air the engine needs. It shields the intake from water. And cheap exposed pods can let rain and road spray get sucked straight toward your engine, which is very, very bad. And most important, a proper airbox and filter actually filter. A lot of cheap pod filters flow great precisely because they barely filter at all. And every speck of grit and dust they let through goes straight into your cylinders and grinds them like sandpaper, every single mile. You didn't add power. You added an abrasive. The bike feels punchier for a season. Then the compression quietly walks away and you never connected to the shiny filters you were so proud of. And now, number one. The one on a massive number of bikes. The one that looks harmless. The one almost nobody thinks of as dangerous. Lowering the bike. Cheap lowering links, dog bones, a slammed rear, chasing that aggressive stance or trying to flat-foot at a stop. I understand this one more than any other, because it usually comes from a real place. A shorter rider who just wants to touch the ground and feel safe. But here's what the cheap lowering kit doesn't tell you. Your motorcycle's handling is geometry. The angles of the frame, the fork, the swing arm, the exact height front and rear. The engineers set all of it to work together so the bike turns, holds a line, and stays stable. When you yank the back down with a set of links, you don't just lower the seat. You change every one of those angles at once. You steepen or slacken the steering, you upset the balance front to rear, and the bike that used to track like it was on rails now feels vague, twitchy, or unwilling to turn. And then there's ground clearance, the part that actually bites. Lower the bike and you've thrown away lean angle and clearance. Now the pegs, the stand, the pipe touchdown in corners you used to take without a thought, and on a motorcycle, a hard part digging into the pavement mid-corner is exactly how you get spat off. Worse, cheap lowering slams the suspension into a range it was never valved for, so it bottoms out over bumps, blowing through its travel and hammering itself. And you, every time the road gets rough, you made the bike look meaner and turned its handling and its safety margin into a liability. All at once. The thing that was supposed to make you feel safer at a stop made you genuinely less safe everywhere the road actually bends. So look at the pattern, because it's the real lesson here and it's bigger than any one part. Every single one of these is the same mistake wearing a different costume. The bike is a balanced system. You changed one variable and didn't rebalance the rest. The exhaust without the tune. The intake without the tune. The ride height without the geometry. In every case, the marketing sold you apart and let you believe it was an upgrade, when what you actually bought was a trade. More noise for less engine life, more airflow for less protection, a lower seat for worse handling. Nobody put that on the box. It was never an upgrade. It was a bill with a delay on it. Now, I already know the comment forming under this video, because it's the same one every time. I've run a slip-on with no tune for 20,000 miles and my bike's fine. And you know what? Maybe it is, for now. But that's not the flex it sounds like. This is exactly why the damage is so sneaky. It doesn't announce itself. A lean engine doesn't blow up on the way home from the shop. It runs hotter than it should for a season. Then two, quietly shortening the life of the valves and the top end, until one day it's down on compression, or it lets go on a hot day on the highway. And by then, nobody connects the dead motor to the pipe they bolted on years ago. My bike's fine is not evidence the mod is safe. It's just the part of the timeline before the bill arrives. Slow damage is still damage. The engine keeps the receipts even when you don't. And here's the trap inside the trap. The guy in the comments swearing it's fine is why the next guy does it too. That's how a genuinely risky mod becomes everybody does it. Everybody does do it. That doesn't make it free. It just means a lot of people are quietly paying the same delayed bill together and calling it normal. Now the part that actually helps you, because I'm not telling you to leave your bike bone stock. I'm telling you how to modify it without destroying it. Rule 1, and it's the whole game. If a mod changes how the engine breathes, in through the intake or out through the exhaust, it is not finished until you've tuned the fuel to match. A fuel controller, an ECU flash, a dyno session, proper jetting on a carbed bike, whatever your machine needs. If you can only afford the pipe or the tune, buy the tune and keep your stock parts. A tuned stock setup will outrun and outlast a lean, untuned upgrade every day of the week. Rule 2, respect the airbox. If you're not going to tune and filter properly, leave it alone. It's doing more for your engine than the noise is doing for your ego. And if you do go aftermarket on filtration, buy on filtration quality, not on how loud it makes the intake. Grit is forever. A pretty filter that lets dirt in is the most expensive part on the bike. Rule 3, lower the right way or don't lower at all. There are honest ways to get to the ground. A lower seat, a narrower saddle, shaving the seat foam, proper suspension internals set up for your weight, boots with a bit more sole. Those solve the reach without wrecking the geometry. Slamming it on cheap links to look tough solves a problem you don't have and creates 3 you didn't see coming. Rule 4, change one thing at a time and then listen to the bike. Bikes talk. Popping on diesel is a lean scream. A bike that suddenly won't hold a line is a geometry problem. A top end that's lost its punch is telling you what those pod filters have been eating. If you stack 5 mods in one weekend and something goes wrong, you'll never know which one did it. And you'll blame everything except the mod that actually matters. And the golden rule under all of it, if an upgrade requires a tune and you skip the tune, you didn't save money. You borrowed it from your engine at a brutal interest rate, and the loan always comes due. Usually at the worst possible moment. Usually on a ride you are really enjoying. None of this means keep it stock and boring. Mod your bike. Make it yours. That's half of why we love these machines. Just respect that it's a system, tune what you change, and stop letting a comment section spend your engine's life for internet points. So, comments, and I read every one. 2 questions. First, which of these 3 is on your bike right now? Be honest. And did you tune for it, or did you just bolt it on and hope? And second, what's the mod you most regret? The one that looked great and cost you later? Your story might be the warning that saves the next rider from the exact same bill. And if you've got a buddy about to slap a loud pipe on a brand new bike with no tune and a big grin, send him this before he turns the key. Ride safe. Mod smart. And remember, the bike was a system before you touched it. Keep it one.